Have you ever wondered how a small nation, surrounded by deserts and seas, stood against mighty empires, survived centuries of battles, and still found its way to peace? Today, we journey through the remarkable story of the Oman Wars, a tale of courage, struggle, and the unbreakable spirit of a people determined to protect their home. Today, I'd like to tell you a story of courage, struggle, and hope. It's called the story of the Oman Wars. It's a story about people, about land, and about how even the strongest storms can lead to calm seas. Once upon a time, long ago, Oman sat quietly along the warm waters of the Indian Ocean. Its shores were peaceful, but its location caught the attention of powerful outsiders. One day, the Portuguese arrived, bringing their ships and cannons. They stayed for many years, holding on to the city of Muscat. But the people of Oman, strong, determined, and proud, knew their home wasn't meant to be ruled by others. They worked together, fought bravely, and finally, after many years, they reclaimed their land. But the story doesn't stop there. You see, when people live in a place with mountains, deserts, and coastlines, their ideas about leadership can be very different. Some believed in rule by faith, others by trade and ships. This led to struggles within Oman itself, between the imamate in the highlands and the sultanate by the sea. Families were divided. Friends stood on different sides. And still, they kept trying to find their way back to peace. Then, much later, another storm rolled in. In a place called Dhofar, a group of people rose up, wanting big changes. It wasn't just a fight. It was a question about the kind of future the country should have. The fighting lasted for many years. But eventually, the people of Oman chose unity, working together to heal old wounds. And now, after all those hard years, Oman is a place where people look toward the future, still remembering their past, still carrying the lessons of every struggle they faced. You see, every place has its story. And sometimes, the hardest stories teach us the most about hope, patience, and the power of working together. Oman's strategic location has shaped much of its history and its involvement in wars. Situated at the southeastern corner of the Arabian Peninsula, Oman lies along the shores of the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Oman, connecting it to the wider Indian Ocean. This location has long made Oman a gateway between the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. From ancient times, Oman was a center for maritime trade, with its ships sailing as far as East Africa, India, and China. This made the region wealthy, but also vulnerable to foreign interest. The trade routes carried goods like spices, frankincense, and dates, attracting traders and empires alike. As global trade increased, powerful nations started to focus on Oman's ports, especially Muscat, which became one of the most important cities for sea trade in the region. Its harbors offered safe anchorage and easy access to key trade paths, making it a valuable prize. Throughout history, many groups sought to control Oman's ports to dominate commerce in the Indian Ocean. The Persian Empire had influence over the region in ancient times, but it was later the Portuguese who forcefully captured Muscat in the early 16th century. They recognized Oman's position as a gateway for controlling trade and sought to use it as a base for their empire. Oman's location also placed it at the crossroads of cultural and political influences, where Persian, Arab, Indian, and later European forces intersected. These overlapping interests meant Oman often found itself at the heart of regional conflicts, facing both external invasions and internal disputes. Even after driving out foreign powers, Oman's leadership had to manage its position carefully, balancing trade, diplomacy, and defense to protect its sovereignty. The importance of its location continues to be central to Oman's identity and history. The Portuguese invasion of Oman began in the year 1507, marking one of the most significant events in Omani history. Led by the Portuguese admiral Afonso de Albuquerque, the Portuguese forces attacked and captured Muscat, a key port city along the Arabian Sea. Their primary aim was to control the trade routes between Europe and Asia, as Oman's ports offered easy access to the Persian Gulf, India, and East Africa. The Portuguese knew that whoever controlled Muscat could dominate the sea lanes of the Indian Ocean. After their conquest, the Portuguese built heavily fortified structures along the coast, including the famous forts of Al-Jalali and Al-Marani. To defend their hold on the city, these forts served not just as military outposts, but also as symbols of Portuguese dominance over the region. For over a century, they maintained control over Oman's major coastal cities, using them as stopover points for ships traveling between Europe and Asia. During this period, the Portuguese extracted wealth through trade taxes and dominated the spice trade routes. However, their rule was harsh and often brutal, leading to widespread resentment among the local Omani population. In the early 17th century, the Omani tribes began organizing resistance against the Portuguese occupiers. The Yarubi dynasty rose to power with a strong sense of unity and determination to reclaim their homeland. Imam Nasir bin Murshid, and later Imam Sultan bin Saif, led several attacks against the Portuguese forts and naval forces. Their efforts gradually weakened the Portuguese grip. After years of battles on land and at sea, the Omanis finally succeeded in driving out the Portuguese from Muscat in 1650. This victory marked not only the end of Portuguese control, but also the beginning of Oman's rise as a major naval and trading power in the region. After the Portuguese were expelled from Oman, in 1650, the country entered a new era of expansion and maritime power under the Yarubi dynasty. The Omanis, proud of their victory, began to build a strong naval fleet with the aim of extending their influence beyond their borders. Their maritime skills, honed over centuries of trade, allowed them to navigate and dominate the waters of the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the East African coast. Oman soon began launching military campaigns to control strategic ports and trade centers along the East African coastline. They captured key cities such as Mombasa, Zanzibar, and Kilwa, establishing their presence in the region. Zanzibar, in particular, became an important hub for the Omani Empire, serving as both a commercial center and a political stronghold. The Omanis also challenged European colonial powers, especially the Portuguese, in various parts of the Indian Ocean. They waged naval battles against Portuguese ships and fortified several captured coastal cities. Their control over the East African coast allowed Oman to dominate trade in ivory, slaves, and spices, bringing great wealth to the empire. This era saw Oman emerge as a significant imperial power, with influence stretching from the Arabian Peninsula to the coasts of East Africa and even parts of the Persian Gulf. However, managing such a vast empire was not easy. The long distances between Oman and its African territories, along with differing local customs and resistance from African populations, made it difficult to maintain control. Furthermore, European powers, particularly Britain and France, began to expand their interests in the Indian Ocean, posing additional challenges to Oman's empire. Despite these difficulties, Oman's period of maritime expansion remains one of the most remarkable chapters in its history, showcasing its naval strength, ambition, and its role as a major force in regional politics and trade. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, Oman faced several internal conflicts that deeply affected its political landscape. These conflicts were mainly between the coastal Sultanate of Muscat and the interior Imamate of Oman. The root of the struggle was a combination of religious, tribal, and economic differences. The Imamate, located in the interior mountainous regions, followed the Ibadi branch of Islam and valued a system of elected religious leadership, where the Imam was chosen for his piety and knowledge. They believed in a traditional, conservative way of life and resisted foreign influence. On the other hand, the coastal Sultanate, centered around Muscat, was more open to trade and foreign relations, especially with the British Empire, which had a growing presence in the region. The Sultans of Muscat signed several treaties with Britain, receiving military and financial support in exchange for cooperation on matters such as anti-slavery efforts and maritime security. These alliances gave the Sultanate access to weapons and resources that strengthened its position. However, This foreign support fueled resentment among the interior tribes, who viewed it as a betrayal of Omani independence and Islamic values. Armed uprisings broke out several times, with the Imamate forces seeking to expel the Sultanate's authority from the interior regions. The conflict led to a series of wars and fragile peace agreements. In 1920, after years of fighting, the Treaty of Seb was signed. This agreement effectively divided the country into two regions: the coastal areas under the control of the Sultan, and the interior under the autonomy of the Imamate. Although this treaty brought temporary peace, tensions remained, with both sides maintaining separate governments, military forces, and laws. The division created a lasting legacy of mistrust and laid the foundation for future conflicts that would challenge Oman's unity in the decades to come. The Dhofar Rebellion was one of the most significant and prolonged conflicts in Oman modern history, lasting from 1962 to 1976. It began in the Dhofar region, located in the southern part of Oman, where economic hardship, poor infrastructure, and social inequality created deep dissatisfaction among the local population. The rebellion was initially driven by demands for greater development and better living conditions, but soon transformed into a larger ideological struggle influenced by regional and global politics. The rebels, organized under the Dhofar Liberation Front and later the Popular Front for the Liberation of Oman and the Arabian Gulf, adopted Marxist-Leninist ideology and received support from communist allies, including South Yemen, the Soviet Union, and China. They aimed to overthrow the Sultanate and establish a socialist state in Oman. The conflict quickly escalated as the rebels carried out guerrilla warfare, ambushes, and sabotage attacks against government forces. The Omani government, under Sultan Said bin Taimur, struggled to contain the uprising due to its weak military and outdated policies. In 1970, a turning point occurred when Sultan Qaboos bin Said overthrew his father in a palace coup and took power. He immediately launched a campaign of modernization, improving education, healthcare, and infrastructure throughout Oman, especially in the Dhofar region. Alongside social reforms, Sultan Qaboos expanded the military with support from Britain, Iran, and Jordan, receiving troops, weapons, and training. The combined military and developmental efforts gradually turned the tide against the rebels. Government forces pushed back insurgents from key positions, cutting off their supply lines from South Yemen. By 1976, the rebellion was officially declared defeated. The end of the Dhofar Rebellion brought not only peace but also marked the beginning of Oman's rapid modernization under Sultan Qaboos, who worked to unify the nation and prevent further internal conflicts through development and reconciliation. Enduring and so, as we look back at the long and winding story of the Oman Wars, we see more than just battles and conflicts. We see a nation that stood firm through storms of invasion, internal divisions, and rebellion. We see people who defended their land, their faith, and their way of life with determination and resilience. From the days of foreign rule to the struggles within and through the fires of rebellion, Oman's story is one of strength, patience, and renewal. In the end, it is a story of unity, where the lessons of hardship shaped a future built on peace, understanding, and hope. It reminds us all that even after the darkest nights, a new dawn can rise, lighting the way forward for generations to come.